Welcome back to Aussie Med Shoots. I've got a couple dogs, so apologies for any sounds or creatures jumping on me. But today what I'm hoping to do is have a bit of a chat to you about my experience in moving from Melbourne to Sydney for med school. Before I get into this video, please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, ask any questions you have, let me know what you want for another video. And now I'll stop speaking and let the video go. So, my move from Melbourne to Sydney, I decided to go to Sydney because I preferred the course of Sydney University. Before making the move, I had moved all of my furniture and my belongings to my mother's place because she lived a couple hours north of Melbourne, which was convenient because it was partway along the ways to Sydney, as well as having a lot of space for her to store all that stuff. The reason I did that is because I didn't have a place already planned before I got to Sydney. So I had to store my furniture somewhere, and what I decided to do was I would look for a place to actually live after I got to Sydney. Naturally though, I needed somewhere to stay while I looked for a place. So what I did was I Airbnb'd somewhere a little ways out of the city, but kind of close to a train station, so it would be easy to commute in and out. It was kind of nice because I treated that time as a bit of a holiday as well as a chance to see some accommodation. Before starting med school, I was in this Airbnb, but I had also assumed that I would need somewhere to stay at the beginning of med school. So I had already pre-booked this college on campus, St. John's, for about the first week of med school. And this was not the greatest decision of mine. It wasn't terrible, but in hindsight, it was pretty terrible. The reason being, when I first booked it, I was looking at these images of the place and they looked quite spacious. There was a nice big fan on the ceiling or something like that. In any case, it seemed pretty good. The cost was acceptable. It was on campus, it was close to everything. And so I went for it, I booked it. And then when I showed up, I showed them the image of the booking and they're like, oh, no, we don't have any rooms like that. Sorry, that must be a very outdated picture or something. I've never even seen that. And I was like, okay, well, in any case, I booked this number of beds, so show me to the room. And while this college is absolutely stunning on the outside, I'll see if I can get some footage of it. It's on the inside very similar to the outside, I guess, in that it's very old-timey. I was in this much cramped room, probably like half the size of the image that I had seen for the booking. And it was quite neat, I guess, is the nicest thing that I can say about it, but very aged. There was one tiny little window on the back of the room that didn't open very much because it was chained to keep it closed. And there were a lot of mosquitoes, so I had to keep that closed at night. They had a fan in the room, naturally no air conditioning. And the fan, like, I had it on full blast, as well as I brought my own little fan, which I set up and had that one on full blast as well. And it was terrible. I was still sleeping in my underwear on top of everything and still hot and sweating. So that was very horrible trying to sleep there. Also, if you haven't lived in Sydney before, there are cockroaches everywhere in summer. So this was not a safe haven from the cockroaches. They managed to make their way into the room. For me, I was kind of expecting it, so I didn't mind too much. I just accepted that that's how it is in Sydney, but it was still pretty gross. And I know a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable handling that. Additionally, this particular place, the kitchen was absolutely atrocious. It was tiny, the fridge was literally completely stocked. I opened it and like you couldn't even put a finger in anywhere. It was so full. So there was no way you could store anything in their kitchen or in their fridge, and the kitchen state was pretty gross as well. I'm pretty sure the bin was completely full, and again, there was like a dead cockroach next to the sink and stuff like that. So that was horrible as well. And then shortly after I got there and went into my room, the person that had let me in like an hour later or something like that came and knocked on the door and then immediately started opening the door. And I was in the midst of getting changed, like literally underwear down around my ankles. And he's like trying to come in. I'm like, hold on. He's like, oh, sorry. Closes the door, walks out. And so I got my clothes on and I like opened the door and he was already halfway down the hall. I'm like, did you need something? And he's like, oh, sorry, I thought the room was empty. I was going to give it to someone else. I'm like, okay. So it was a bit of a weird situation there. So my advice is just Airbnb a nice place, nice-ish place. It doesn't need to be amazing, but kind of, at least with Airbnb, you can check the reviews and know that you're gonna get a place that's the same as the images. Whereas with this college, I don't know why it was misleading. In fact, I think I used Agoda to get it, but I'm not sure. So in any case, before I moved to St. George's, St. George's College, whatever it is, I did find a place, literally the first place I inspected. I was like, this is perfect. Bills are included, it's furnished, it's everything that I need, I'll take it. And so I moved in there halfway through the week that I had booked the St. John's place for, because I just did not want to stay at St. John's anymore. So I just gave up the money for that. I didn't mind. That was, again, look, the place was beautiful during the day when I inspected it. And then at night, I came to find that there were a few things that weren't necessarily the best. So the next place that I moved to was Uni Lodge, next to Broadway Shopping Centre. I loved it because it was furnished. It looked absolutely amazing inside. So this was, unlike the other rooms in Uni Lodge, this was a privately owned unit. They'd renovated it, they'd put in lovely furniture. Like I said, it was next door to a shopping center, so I was able to get all my groceries, anything else that I needed from there. It was all available just across the road. Bills were included, so finally I had beautiful AC to cool me down. Oh, it was amazing, and I didn't have to worry too much about the bills for the AC. Not great for the environment, obviously, but after St. John's, I was pretty keen to have a bit of a break and a bit of luxury. So that was beautiful. The downsides of moving there were that there was no easily installable internet of my own. If you wanted internet, you had to use this one particular one that they had modems all around the place, throughout the halls set up. So they had all these modems on the ceilings in the hallways, and you sign up for this particular one and then you don't need to get a modem. So in that sense, the internet was convenient, but it was also very inconvenient in other ways, like you could only connect 5 devices to the internet, and you had to go onto their website and like change the device that you wanted to put on there. So that was a bit annoying. And then at night, I found out that there were some other pretty terrible things, which were, there was this beautiful large window that opened in the kitchen, and it extended all the way up to the bedroom. And it was fantastic during the day because it let in all this light into the kitchen, which had this timber and white look that was beautiful. But then at night, it turns out there was also a super bright light attached to the wall outside of my unit, so on the outside of the building, that shone directly into the window. And even with the blinds shut completely, it still looked like I had lights on, essentially. So that made it very difficult to sleep. And in addition to that, despite being on the top level of Uni Lodge, which is the 4th level, up fairly high, it was still a very busy road outside, and so there was traffic sounds all night, 24/7, as well as people screaming from time to time. And the last most annoying thing is that the fire alarm would go off at 3 a.m. or other ridiculous times at least once a month, if not multiple times a month. And when it would go off once, like one day, it wouldn't just go off at 3 a.m. It would then go off at 3:30 and 4:30. Like, it would go off a couple of times. And it's like, is somebody cooking at 3 a.m. in the morning and burning things? I did not understand. Now I've moved into my permanent accommodation. I'm next door to a shopping center. I'm close to uni. I can get to uni. I've started uni, all of that. But I've only got one suitcase, so what I decided to do to get all of my other belongings up without having to pay for a truck to move them up, what my partner at the time and I did was we would visit each other every couple weeks. So every other weekend, one of us would go see the other one. And so there would be an overnight train that we would go on. And so her place in Shepparton was about an hour or two from Beechworth, where my mother was. So we'd do a big trip to Beechworth, fill up her car with my belongings, take it to Shepparton, and then I would gradually move things up one suitcase at a time every couple weeks, and then she would do the same when she would visit. So very gradually moved things up. It meant basically that I didn't have a fully set up home for most of the year. And then at the end of last year, I moved again. So I basically repeated the whole thing, but fortunately I just moved like 10 minutes down the road. So that was much better. But then I had to get all my furniture up here. The good side of that was that I didn't spend any money moving my stuff up. The downside was I never really felt like I had all of my things for most of the year. And as well, my partner at the time, her room was full of all my stuff, so that was annoying for her. So in hindsight, I would probably spend a bit of money to move that stuff up, but that's life. You learn your lessons. And that's pretty much my experience with moving up to Sydney. If you've got other questions, whatever it might be, essentially I just wanted to put this video of what it was like for me moving up to Sydney. Not a lot of positive things to say, I just realized, but hopefully that's a lesson for everyone else. So I'll leave it there because I've said about 50 to 100 ums and ahs, and you must be pretty annoyed of listening to me by this point. If you've got any questions, let me know. Remember to subscribe, like, share, all of that jazz. It helps with my videos getting seen by other people. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye-bye.